Welcome to the Thriving Farmer Podcast. I'm your host, Michael Kilpatrick. Our mission is to inspire, educate, and celebrate sustainable farming. We believe that you can build a profitable, sustainable farm that gives you true farm freedom. Join us as we talk to farmers, innovators, educators, and entrepreneurs to glean their top takeaways in business and life. Hey, Thriving Farmers, Michael Kilpatrick here with another episode of the Thriving Farmer Podcast. And today our guest is Lyndsay, who is a commercial horticulturist with over 20 years of experience in the agricultural industry. A graduate of the Ohio State University's Landscape Horticulture program, Lyndsay started Wildroot Flower Co in 2016 as a way to share her love for nature and horticulture with her community. She shares her passion for natural, locally grown flowers with her customers through her on-farm workshops, farmers markets, and you pick events. Welcome to the podcast, Lyndsay.
Hey, Michael, thank you for having me.
So talk to us a little bit about a little bit of an overview of your farm. So you sell some flowers, but you also do a lot of events and workshops. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so we sell, we do have farmers markets, and we do some wholesale where we sell to grocery stores and other retail locations. But my passion is really just sharing the horticulture world and ag with the local community. So we do that a lot through on-farm workshops. We also do collaboration workshops with brewing companies. We do farm to table dinners, and then also our U-Pick events. And new this year, we've just started our Little Sprouts series, which is working with kids. So.
Very cool.
Yeah.
All right. So you have a long career in horticulture. Did you always know that you wanted to be doing something with plants?
Yeah. So I feel pretty lucky, honestly. When I was younger, I, had friends that were on a farm, and I loved always being outside and kind of always loved nature. And there was a local greenhouse hiring, and I got hired on when I was 16. And I just remember thinking there were adults working there, and I thought, oh, that's so fascinating. Like, you could do this for a living. And, when you were in school and that impressionable age in high school and just trying to figure out what you want to do, it just always seemed like a natural fit for me. And so I ended up going to Ohio State and getting a landscape horticulture degree.
Over the weekend, we actually had some volunteers stop by the farm that wanted to fill their high school students that were trying to get their honors program volunteer hours. And so they were like, two of them were like, oh my gosh, I want to come back and volunteer one day a week. And the other one's like, I'm working at Subway and I hate it. And can I just come work for you guys? So yeah, I think people, if there was more farms and they understood that they could work on a farm, and just the aspect of, hey, it's not always doom and gloom out there. It's always, sometimes it's fun working in the greenhouse and all that stuff. It can be really exciting. That more people would be choosing that path. And I think it's to us as farmers to really give them the clear vision of what can be.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that was the importance for me, starting with the Little Sprouts series, where, it wasn't until I got a job at the greenhouse that I would have never found it otherwise, And so, they have the career days at schools and exposing kids, but we didn't have anything like that. I thought my options were to be a teacher or, a nurse or something like that. So, when I was there and I loved my job, I had great coworkers that were super encouraging. So it really just, I feel pretty lucky to have that. So I've been doing it since I was 16.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. So you did the horticulture degree, and what would you say your top 3 takeaways from that degree would be that's helped you now in the field?
I thought top 3. I would say for sure just the plant knowledge. That was really that has helped me so much, and just having such a big exposure. And carrying that now into the farming world, it's made me look at, because we grow a lot of annuals. And so my background was perennial, herbaceous material. So now I'm looking like, okay, how can we incorporate, more herbaceous materials on the farm? So that means for us, less labor,
yes.
And all of that. So that would be one. The hands-on experience I got, I worked for the Arboretum, I worked for OSU. So that was just, for me, that was incredible to be able to be in school and learn the plant material and then go out and work into the learning gardens. And I also did tours with them. So we were giving tours as students to people that we were hoping to invest back into the Arboretum. So it gave me confidence in that way. And so that was a great thing. And then also, I think school just kind of piqued my curiosity with meeting other people, in the ag industry and seeing the exposure. There was floriculture. There were arborists that I went to school with, landscape construction. So I don't know, it really just kind of gave me this broad, I minored in ag business. So, that business side of it now is crucial in running a farm and making it profitable. So.
Absolutely. So talk to us a little bit about starting the flower farm, because you have the background in the horticulture. Did you have any bridge jobs, or what was your next step along the path?
Yeah. So when I graduated from Ohio State, I moved to the Baltimore, DC metro area. And prior to starting the farm, all of my jobs have been in the landscape horticulture side. So a lot with landscape design. I did Victorian gardens, a lot on the ornamental side. So I worked for a company, a high-end residential landscape design company in Columbus. So it was always sort of, I knew I hadn't hit the thing yet. Every January I'd have coffee with a good friend of mine that went to horticulture school with me. And we'd say, I don't know what we're doing. What is it? What do we want to do? We both came in 2016 to each other, and we both brought a flower farming book to the coffee date. And I was like, are you is this what we're doing?
Yeah.
So we both sort of just kind of fell into it right around the same time. And for me, the farming has just been, it's really made a lot of sense to me. It gives me the creative freedom to, teach people at the same time. And then also expose people to nature and connect them to the outdoors. So.
And especially a beautiful side of nature.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's why I love the flower farming, because obviously it's growing things and I love growing things, but the flower farm just adds that level of beauty. People just don't get that excited about tomatoes or lettuce.
Yeah.
All right, so let's talk about, so you had that idea, you took the flower farming book. What was that book actually?
The Lynn Benzacane book.
Yes.
Yeah. So I read that one and I thought, okay, this is doable. And interestingly, all through my entire career, even when I was 16, working a high school job, everybody just always talked about how impossible it is to make money. I remember sitting in college and my professor saying, if you're here to get rich, you're in the wrong place. And I kept thinking, what has to be wrong? So, reading that book and then looking at, how can I make this a profitable business, I think was really what got me motivated to figure it out, find the solution.
Yeah, I actually have exactly the same, because I always grew up. You heard in the movies, you heard in the media, you heard in the books, farmers are poor, they can't make any money. And, I was seeing the Smithsonian article with Joel Salatin that showed that, oh my gosh, down on the farm, things are a little bit different and you can make money off of it.
Yep.
That was kind of the thing that jump-started us, even though we went very different from animals who went to horticulture and vegetables. But yeah, seeing that a case study of, yes, you can be profitable. Here's some things that you're going to have to think about to do that. Hugely important.
Yep.
So what was the first thing to start the farm?
So I started my first year, I invested my own savings is how I got started. And I started, fairly small and just sort of, I say I took money from anybody that would take my flowers that first year. I read a lot of books, business books. I really am fascinated with the marketing side. So, did some research on that, but yeah, we just, tilled up some rows and planted seeds, started stuff, and sold at a market, a weekday market that year. We actually started up a CSA the very first year and did workshops. So we kind of did a smaller version of what we're doing now throughout the first year. So
very cool. All right. So what would you say your top business books during that period that kind of moved you, and the marketing books that kind of moved you along the path?
Well, the one that I would say is The Business Boutique, and it's a lady that, she has the Dave Ramsey.
Right.
Yes. And so I read that, and I really, the takeaway from that book that I had that still sticks with me was separating your personal finances from your business finances. And at the time, the lines were really blurred for me. It was my first year running a business. And so, everything's new, everything's a first when you're doing it. And so I read that book, and when she said that, I was like, oh, this would make my life a lot easier. So from that point forward, I just started separating my personal finances, even if I needed to run to Lowe's and it was like, oh, I only had my personal debit card, making a very strong point to keep those things separated. And now that we've scaled the farm, I can't imagine having, I can't imagine having it. But that was probably one of my probably the best book that I read for me as far as with business. And it's slipping me, the marketing book that I read. I'll have to circle back to that on you.
All right. Yeah, if you can think of the author, then I might be able to remember the book. So with that, then separating your personal and the business, are you incorporated? Are you a DBA or are you an LLC?
An LLC? Yeah, I'm a sole member LLC.
Okay. All right. Yeah. And we highly recommend folks set up, either get that sole proprietorship or the LLC. If you're going for funding, outside funding, we find the LLC at the beginning can be a little bit of a challenge. So that's sometimes where the sole proprietor is a little bit easier for folks. All right. So you started with your own money, and what would you say your takeaways from that first year were? And at the end, were you like super pumped, or were you exhausted, or were you thinking, I'm not sure I want to do this again?
I was exhausted and pumped, I think, all at the same time. My biggest takeaway from that first year was really just giving myself some grace to make mistakes. Switching from the landscape side into ag, I felt like I had this pressure on myself that I needed to know it all, right? So it was like, why is this not, these we put in some plants and they got fried, and I thought that should not have happened. And it took a lot of the whole year for me to really kind of chill out and just be like, this is the first time you've done any of this. It's the first time you've been farming on a large scale. I always had a personal garden, but to have it, and also then to have a CSA and have this pressure that it actually put on me. But yeah, at the end of the season, I was like, my whole goal for the first season was just to make that money back for the first year. And we did more than that. And I thought, okay, I've got something. So the interest was there, and also just getting people to, educating people on what we even were, because still 5 years later, people are used to greenhouses. So they think we grow hanging baskets, and really educating people, because truthfully, people don't know where their food comes from, let alone flowers, so that's something that I've been trying to educate people on. So.
Absolutely. All right. So then when did the workshops start coming into this?
I did workshops the first year. I did a handful of them, but we've just continued to sort of grow that. And I have some, kind of more long-term goals where I want to pull that horticulture side into the business. And when I started the farm, I didn't want to call it Wildroot Flower Farm. I intentionally named it Flower Company so that I could sort of make this branding a little bit different, so that we could incorporate later on an educational piece, and it not just be, fine-tuned into farming. But yeah, so they've just kind of continued to expand, and we also do things like, so we have a lady coming to do macrame pot, planting this year. So it kind of grabs a different market. Not everybody's super interested in flowers. They're more into the ambiance of the farm.
Yeah.
So we try to get a different, group of people there too by doing those.
And the barn you've got pictures in, is that the beautiful post and beam? Is that your barn?
Yeah. Yep. That's our barn.
Nice.
So yeah, beautiful. It was originally this farm was a dairy farm. And so we've done a ton of work. We're still working on it. As you know, it's over 100-year-old barn. The work never stops. But we've been, our studio space is in there now. So where we process our flowers and have that is all in that barn. And then our workshops are on the other side of it. So
nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, that's really nice. Yeah, we actually have a tour / workshop coming here this next week. And they were saying, well, what if it rains? And we're like, well, we can go in the greenhouse.
Yeah.
Unless it's raining really hard, then you won't be able to hear anything. But a space like that is something that we actually lack. We have a barn, but it's full of stuff. So figuring out, where to put all that so we can get people in there is going to be Yeah, because I think the classes size is going to be really key. And I think the thing about classes too is we found that once we got people to our farm, they were 100% more of a loyal customer because they now understood the setting. They had connected with us at a completely different level than just shopping at the farmer's market.
Yeah.
So I noticed another class that you did with yoga on the farm. Is that was that just yoga, or is that built in with something else?
Well, we've done it both ways, and my mom's actually a yoga instructor.
Okay.
So we decided the very first year, I thought like, oh, hippies, let's do flower crowns and yoga, and it kind of worked. They were there more for the yoga, and then we had a few people that stayed after and did the flower crowns. But this year, since we have a U-pick, we're actually going to do a sunrise. So we're going to do sunrise yoga, and then we've done sunrise and sunset, and then we're going to do a U-pick combined with that. So so I'm hoping that'll be different. But the last couple of years, we've switched to just doing yoga on the farm, and people really like it. We sell bouquets, there. And they just like being in the flowers and kind of in that quiet space. So.
You're giving me ideas. Yes, like right now we're gonna put the flowers is too close to the road, but next year we could move them so it's like in the back part of the property, so they could basically be really quiet back there. They could do the sunset yoga, sunrise yoga, and they can just look out on the field of flowers, which would be absolutely stunning.
Yeah, it's great. It pulls in a lot of people, and it's been good for my mom too. Just to hit a different market and people to, to expose her business to, which has been great.
Okay, so that's one type of class. And how are you getting people to sign up for these? Are you running Facebook ads, or are you just Instagram, or is it through the farmer's market?
So it's our we use our social media, but we also have a pretty good email following. And so we advertise. I always talk about them with every workshop we do, and people get hyped up for them. One thing that we do is limit the number of people just to kind of create that intimate experience. We do a farm to table dinner, and we limit it to about 22 people. And it sells out in 10 minutes, both very, very quickly. Cause people they know it's limited, and, we only keep it a small amount. We share pictures in our social media pages and talk about it, but we sell the tickets through our website, and that usually goes out to our email subscribers first.
Okay. So that's how you do that. Now you do the yoga, and then what other kinds of classes do you do?
So we've done design classes. So we do where they pick their own flowers, and then they come in and learn how the basics of design, arranging. We are getting ready to do a mommy and me workshop. So they're going to be making a flower crown, and then we hired a photographer to come in and take pictures of them. So the kids are going to have pictures, and then the mom will be with them. We've done wine and canvas workshops before, pumpkin workshops where they carve pumpkins and then put florals in them.
So the canvas, is they painting flowers?
Yeah, it's been, we do. Most of them have a floral element, but sometimes they'll do like a fall.
Okay.
So I have somebody that comes in, and those are great for us as, operating on the farm, because they charge their own ticket price, and then I just pay them as a 1099. And we do all the ticket sales. So it's easy. They just show up. It's good exposure for their business. People buy our apparel and our flowers, and get to be on the farm and do something other than just that. And it's a great night out for we get husbands and wives that come together, group of girlfriends, bachelorette parties. So it's really been a good part of our business.
Yeah, absolutely. So talk to me then about, so you've got the classes. What do you think the key elements of a good class experience for people is?
I think giving them, we've always had the educational piece. So when we run it, how we do pretty much every workshop, the little kids one, the Little Sprouts workshop is different, because I'm thinking their attention span is 10 or 15 minutes to any material. The only main difference was they love to introduce themselves. I was like, do you guys want to go around and say their name? And they're all like, heck yeah. Whereas adults are like, don't even look at me. So that was interesting and fun. But just having an educational element. I always give them a tour of the farm, which everybody loves. They like taking pictures and asking questions. So I think engaging with me, and again, those smaller class sizes, because I think people come for the on-farm experience, but they also want to meet the employees. They want to talk to us and ask questions. They really want to connect with the farmer, and who they're buying from. And then we always do a hands-on portion of the workshop. And then they're creating something and they leave with something. So there's always giving them sort of that value with that. And then we take photos, and I always send a link, a gallery to them afterwards so that they can all share the pictures. So.
Absolutely, because that is how you also drive more people coming for different workshops, is by those social proof pictures.
Yep.
Very cool. And what's the ideal size you find for the workshops?
Again, there's the farm to table ones. We're in the 20 to 24 range.
Okay.
Our biggest workshop we do is our wreath workshop. So we have a Christmas business that we do, and those we typically run like 50 to 60, which is really full, but it's a very systematic. So, but I would say on average we have 30, 35.
Okay. All right. Now, and what price points do you feel works? What's a range that you feel works? For
for our farm to table dinners, we run about $150 a ticket.
Okay.
And they also, they aren't just getting a meal with that. They're also creating a centerpiece. So with that particular one, they come in, they get to make a centerpiece. We have the flowers there for them, and then that's what they put in front of them for the dinner. And then they get this amazing meal from a friend of mine, that he's a chef in Coshocton area. And so it's a great value, I think, for an entire night out on that. Our design workshops, strictly just design, they're in the 85 range.
Okay.
So most of I would say our average ticket price is 75 to 95.
Okay. All right. Yeah, that dinner sounds like an amazing deal, because I know those centerpieces are big money themselves. So they take that home, and that's really cool.
Yeah.
All right. So let's talk about your growing practices for the flowers. What kind of systems do you set up? Do you do a lot of, raised beds, or you got grass pathways between? I don't see on your website, I don't see a lot of actually specific field
farming.
pictures.
Yeah. So, we have 2 high tunnels. We're getting ready to get a third this fall that we have, and both of those are 30 by 96 high tunnels that we grow in. We used to grow with grass paths, and our U-pick actually still is, just for ease of, having people on the farm and comfort. All of our production fields are, they are in, typically they're 4-foot rows, and they're about 100 to 200 feet. And they are all pathways that are not mowed. So everything's tilled in that regard.
So more like field blocks.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. And then what equipment do you have? What's your equipment system?
We have, so that's one thing that we're actually working on this year with a couple of my flower farmer friends that are in Ohio. We're kind of looking at more of a mechanized. The only thing we really use with equipment right now, we have a BCS tiller, and then we have a Kubota tractor that we use to till up the fields. But as far as seeding and planting, we do all of it by hand right now. I mean, I have an earthway seeder for direct seeding, but the actual planters, the way we're set up with our rows, we don't have a transplanter or anything like that. So it's all by hand, all by labor.
Do you use a lot of landscape fabric?
We do for the first 3 years on any bed. And then after that, I feel like we kind of get a handle on those weeds. We do use cover crop every year on those, so we're just trying to, usually the first 3 years we're working on that. Our dahlia beds, we don't ever use fabric in, and we don't use landscape fabric in our tunnels either. Okay.
All right. So talk to me through that a little bit, because that's obviously, landscape fabric is something that's really easy, but you don't use them on your dahlias. Is that because rodents or?
No, we didn't the first year, and we're really good about keeping up with the weeds, because I like our fields to be clean and presentable. I think a pretty field is profitable, and it really translates to the value of what we're providing back to our customers. So we plant them on 12-inch spacing, and we get a handle on the weeds really early. And then by the time those dahlias kind of come up and fill in the beds, we don't have any real issues with
Yeah.
that. I mean, once that, that shades them out and we keep, they kind of keeps them at bay. We do wheel hoe on the roads, or we'll run like a little Manus tiller to keep those pathways knocked down. But I think it's just a little doing our, keeping ahead of the weeds early in the season kind of just sets us up for the rest of the year.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And so then, and now tuber production too. Your tuber production, is that specific, or is that just whatever's from your summer flowers?
Say that you mean like as to what we sell?
Yeah. Do you basically plant knowing that you're trying to grow more and more tubers?
Yeah.
Okay. So you're okay.
So we increased our, I started out in the beginning, like I wanted to grow, I was always growing those like fad dahlias,
Yeah.
That was hot. And then I was like, if it's fussy, I don't want to grow it. If it's hard to get, I'm not interested in it.
Yeah.
It's solely because, we sell to retail mostly. So our customers love dahlias. They don't care if it's a cafe au lait or cream, so I didn't spend the effort to chase down these. We do grow those. We do have those. But so my main goal over the last few years was I was spending thousands of dollars on tubers. And I thought, I just want to get to the place that I'm sustained with my own, and then if I want to buy in some to get, new colors or something, then we'll do that. But mostly, all of our tubers come from us from the previous year's production.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. Now, what's the fastest way to, increase your tuber stock? I know we started some in the greenhouse, so we're going to be, taking some cuttings from that. Is there any other ways you can do it? Can you take cuttings later in the season from shoots, or is it pretty much just the spring?
It's pretty much just the spring because it takes a bit for them to get going and get that up. The biggest thing for me was I started making notes early on where what tubers produce the most, like terracotta is one, Cornell Bronze. They're one that I know one tuber we're planting in the spring, I'm going to get at least 10, it's like, that's like, I know that we're going to be productive. Yep. And then we just started weeding out the ones that didn't overwinter well, that, we loved the color, but we got like scrappy little tubers that they didn't have eyes on them. So Pink Runner's another one that has massive tubers on it. So that's one way we just started kind of nitpicking what we were actually planting. So
that makes a lot of sense. Absolutely. Very cool. Okay. So dahlias, and then in the tunnels, you do not do any landscape fabric. It's all direct. It's all bare ground. Yep. And what flowers do you grow in your tunnels?
So we have right now, they are filled with lots of our early season spring flowers. So we have ranunculus, anemone, and that fills one of the tunnels. The first tunnel, we have dianthus snapdragons, and those were all fall planted. So we put those in probably August, September, and we overwintered them in there. We will transition once that we have some spring. We planted like Dusty Miller, Status, and all of that starting to bloom now. So,
and those overwintered flowers, when will they start producing?
They're producing just now. That's when they're started. Yes, we just are starting to get the snaps. We've been cutting on the dianthus for about 3 weeks, and these are unheated tunnels. We don't. The snaps are blooming. We overwintered rosemary. That's kind of our feverfew will probably be on in about 3 weeks. And so we have that in there. And then we'll tear that stuff out and we'll switch it over to, we have Lysianthus, that we're filling in with.
Yep. Okay. So you mentioned something right there. You're filling in. Does that mean like as you harvest these flowers, you're pulling them out and then just putting right in the same spots?
Yep. Yeah. So we'll compost them down, and that's just sort of, we try to get at least, there's a handful of crops, right, that we can't do that with, like dahlias, but we try to flip a bed, at least get 2 different crops in it throughout the season so that we're really kind of maximizing that space. And I think that's definitely something I've learned over the last couple of years was just more about succession planting and really just as soon as something goes out, something goes back in.
Yeah, maximize that space.
Yep.
And then is that overhead irrigation or drip irrigation?
Drip. Yeah, we use drip in the tunnels. We use drip on dahlias. And then we are just switching over to, I used a farmer friendly, is that what it is? The farmer's friendly, is that, I'm talking about
Farmer's Friend.
Farmer's Friend. Yes, that would be it. They had an overhead irrigation.
Yes.
That we used last year, and we just had pressure issues. I think we had it reduced down too much. We were going from garden hose to a 1-inch line, and I think we were restricting it too much. But we're switching that stuff over. We're going to a 1.5-inch line with overhead for our U-pick and the rest of our production fields. So.
Okay.
Curious to see how that's going to go.
Well, let's talk through that for a second. So you are coming off a hydrant, I'm assuming, like a frost-free hydrant.
Yep.
Do you know what your well produces?
We're on city water.
Oh, you're on city water.
Yeah, real cheap.
So you have plenty of pressure though from that. Okay, because that's some of the, okay, so you should have that, and then you went to a garden hose, and then you went to your header. And how long was was it 100-foot overhead?
Yeah.
And with a spaced on 3-foot or 5-foot spacing for yours. So that means you're running 21 sprinklers in there or 20 sprinklers in there. And then was that a 3/4-inch header or a 1-inch header?
1 inch.
It's gotta be the garden hose. That must be, that's the most restrictive part. I mean, we actually run off garden hose, but we're running about 60 to 70 PSI whole system. The whole system's on 60 to 70 PSI, so that can run through that. And it also depends on your garden hose, because they make a 5/8 garden hose and a 3/4 garden hose. Okay. And that makes a big difference too. Okay. But cheaper than a garden hose is just going to be 1-inch black PVC. So you give your hands on that, and or if you said a 1.5-inch, if you're in 1.5-inch now, you should be completely fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, we do a lot of irrigation, and one of the things we just experienced was we just set up some irrigation in our 200-foot tunnel. And 50 foot of that tunnel is propagation and 150 foot is in ground. So we ran the 150 foot, and I ran the numbers, and I was like, I can just get away with it. Mm-hmm. So we did it, but we were basically like one sprinkler head over what we needed to be. So we just put in little shut-off valves, shut off 2 of them, and we were able to run the 145 feet at once. But yeah, it comes back to, just those little tiny tweaks when you're starting to push the edge there.
Yeah. And that's been trying to learn those things too. I used Yoder's produce up there in Amish country, and they've been great to help me. A lot of reading, just getting to understand what it is I'm even doing.
Yes.
What I'm looking at. So that's been one of those things, trial and error with that. But drip is a pain. Drip's good for the tunnels, but it's a pain for the fields and setting it up. And so. Well,
and then you hit it with a tiller, or you hit it when you're broad forking. We interplanted green garlic with our strawberries, because strawberries are never a great dollar per square foot for us. So we were like, so we tried 3 different systems. We interplanted lettuce, which worked wonderfully. We interplanted green garlic, which worked okay. We interplanted southern yellow collard southern yellow cabbage collards, which were, again, incredibly productive. And I don't think they reduced the yield too much. But when we were harvesting the green garlic, we literally speared the drip tape like 9,000 times. And there was literally a geyser the entire row. So we had to figure that one out. But yeah, overhead's the best way to go if you can make it work.
Yeah.
This podcast is brought to you by Stewart. Dan is here. And Dan, talk to us about, when you guys are assessing a loan application, what are the things you're looking for?
It's a pretty quick assessment. And I think that's often a lot is lost in documents and paperwork. But at the end of the day, there's a few quick elements that we look for in a farm. First is, do they have an existing product? Are they producing something? Are they growing something? Have they shown that they have a product that they can reliably produce? Mm-hmm. The second is markets. Do they know where they're selling it? Are they selling the product? Have they shown that there's a price point they can sell it at? Have they shown that there's opportunity for them to sell more, expand the market? Again, doesn't have to be a huge amount of sales or a huge market, but that they've validated they can produce something and that they have a place to sell it. And the third for us is their agricultural skill. Experience is part of it, but we work with a lot of farmers who are 1 or 2 years in. But do they know how to grow? Have they spent the time to learn agriculture? Are they not going too big, too fast, too soon? Because if they can grow something and they can sell it in the market, ultimately, particularly direct sales, they can have decent revenue to support themselves. Generally, when we're funding these farms, we're boosting their growth. So if they already have a product they're growing, more irrigation is going to let them grow more of it. More hoop houses are going to grow more of it. If they already have a market they're selling at, more volume, they're going to have more sales. And then the skill of being a farmer, that one we can't,
Yeah.
The funding doesn't change that. That one's we have an in-house team member who's a farmer himself, who does phone calls and chats, and he's assessing, okay, is this person ready to take that step to borrow funds and to grow? But we'll see an application, and within 30 seconds to a minute, we can do a quick assessment. One other thing we look for, I think most lenders, it's not as important, but their online presence. Because so much of being able to sell products as a farmer today is telling a story and showcasing what products you have. And if you don't have a digital presence, it's hard for people to find you. The farmers market obviously is one location, but I think there's a certain kind of branding and narrative and social and online presence that helps build confidence, that helps drive traffic, and that can be simple to set up. But we find that those are the farmers that are they're really telling their story. They're really building a direct customer base that's resilient. And as they grow and produce more, they can sell more. And that's the virtuous cycle that we're looking for.
Awesome.
Okay, so that's your field systems. What are you using for fertility?
We grow organically. We're not certified organic, but fertility. So we use right now we're using a carbon-based compost that we're trying out of Pennsylvania. So.
Okay.
That's something new that we're trialing in the tunnels, but we use a lot for a foliar feed with fish fertilizer. That's, kelp. That's for most stuff. That's what we're using. It's just basic fish fertilizer. And then just depending on what the crop is, we do use with our dahlias a pelletized chicken fertilizer that we kind of spread over, and we tweak that based off of soil testing results like that. But and we do try to crop we're rotating our crop down too on those, especially with dahlias.
So that's interesting you said that on dahlias, because there's a lot of different conflicting information out there. How much nitrogen or how many pounds per acre do you tend to put down the chicken fertilizer for your dahlias?
Gosh, I should know that off the top of my head. I'm using whatever the recommended on that bag is.
Okay.
I'd have to I can shoot you an email to get.
Yeah, I'm sure it's like a 534 or 343 or something like that.
Yeah.
And so you're just using the recommended on the back of that.
Yeah, we're just using the recommended on that. And we did, we're actually getting ready to this year work directly with Yoders with our soil testing to kind of blend us something specific to our dahlia bed.
Okay.
Just because I want to really focus on, that's an area that we want to grow, is our tuber production. To increase those sales. And so that's one of the things we're working on, is specific to that this year. So I can circle back to you once we.
Yeah, interesting. I didn't know that Yoder did custom mixing.
Yeah. Yep.
Very interesting. Yeah, I've actually got an order I placed today with them. So.
Yep.
Okay, very cool. All right, so we covered that. And the irrigation, having that as city water, gosh, that's nice. I just, other than struggling with anything they pump into that, 'cause that's the only thing you might have a trouble with. One of the reasons.
Paying the bill.
Yes.
The bill.
Yes. So I know that actually some places they will give like a farm hookup rate or like a flat rate. So it really depends. If we were to hook up, we have to pay water and sewer. So they hit you double, even though you're not using the sewer at all. And at our farm, because we're an urban farm, we're an 8-acre urban farm, we were able to avoid them making us hook up because we claimed that their water would harm our plants, which it probably on one aspect will. So they didn't make us, because technically if you do any development in our city, you're supposed to hook up to their municipality water.
Okay.
So that was, that was a little contentious, but the development seemed to be pretty okay with that because we're a very farm-based usage. So talk to us a little bit about the business side. So obviously we kind of talked about at the beginning, the business boutique book was super important as you grew, and separating those finances. What other aspects really have driven your growth in the business?
I think the biggest thing in the last couple of years that has allowed our business to kind of grow and scale is me letting go and turning things over. And I think I recognized a few years ago that I was the limiting factor in this business growing. And, it was requiring me to turn things that I felt like were super important, like I wanted to have my hand on every bouquet that we sent out. Well, that's, that's impossible, so,
Yeah.
So I started turning things over to employees and, trusting them to do things and pushing more responsibility on them. So I think that has been probably the biggest thing that I've learned in the last few years is just letting go and doing less. With regards to the farming side,
Yes.
out there in it and more just having that like CEO, like want to run my business mindset.
Have you read the Traction book?
No.
I definitely recommend it. I'll shoot you an email or, Traction by Gino Wickman, I think is the name.
Okay.
Yeah, you'll really enjoy that. It's about that aspect of, building the team, really figuring out the systems and the processes and how the team is set up. So,
yeah.
All right, so let's talk through how big is your team?
So we have 5 right now.
Okay.
We have 5 employees. We have a greenhouse and field manager, and her job responsibilities are basically anything that grows on this plant or, on the farm for her to keep an eye on. So we have one of the systems we have in place is we use Google Sheets, and we have a daily, weekly task list that everybody has access to. Everybody has their own tab. It's a really good communication tool for us that we are constantly sort of adding to. I like to do my like Sunday walk around and kind of gather for the week and get everybody together, and then add to that task list. So, our greenhouse and field manager, she's looking through, she's adding to that. And then under her, we have field assistants, and they do everything from harvesting, weeding. Some of them run markets and U-pick. And then I have an operations manager, which is, she's kind of my right hand. She does all of those things, but she also helps me emails and customer service things and stuff that I, need follow up on and help with.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So then, so you have the field manager and the greenhouse manager. Now, do you start all your plugs? I know you're probably buying in, let's say, things like lithianthus, that sort of thing.
Yep. We grow those. We grow everything from seed.
Oh, wow.
And lithianthus, no way. I don't have the patience. There's a lot of ways to kill those 16 weeks. There's fine. I love the farmers out there that say, they grow them. I'm like, bless you. I don't.
Bless your heart.
Yeah, I know. Farmer Bailey is getting my business. We grow those in. We do a few things. Eucalyptus is another one that I just quit messing with because we grow it. We order the plugs in from there. I'm trying to think what else we do. I'm trying asters this year. I always like to just try something new.
Yeah.
But for the most part, we start everything on the farm, down in our shop, and then we transplant it out. We do some direct seeding, cosmos, zinnias, amaranthus, stuff that's pretty easy. We direct seed.
Okay, so talk to me about that. When you direct seed with the earthway.
Yep.
And then which seed plate do you use for, let's say, zinnias? Is that maybe the carrot plate?
Yep, that's it.
Okay.
Yep. Lettuce is a lot of the smaller stuff. Celosia is another one that we just started direct seeding. I really try to push it on getting those out. Forget-me-nots is another one we direct seed. Some of them we'll still mess with and do them by hand if we're just doing like a small patch, but most of it's we use the lettuce plate on a lot of stuff. So chlorum is one, a lot of that early season stuff, bachelor's buttons, all of that. So
okay, very interesting. And then sunflowers.
Yeah. Sunflowers, we actually use the zipper.
Okay. Yeah.
So we have not done them with the earthway that we're going to this year. We're going to trial those. But yeah, we've used the zipper, and then somebody just goes along and they're sort of like sprinkling them back in. We have really sandy soil. We actually live off of Sand Hill.
Okay. All right.
So we, it comes with its challenges, keeping it, the nutrients in the soil and then also keeping it watered, but it's also super easy to plant in. So I try to not complain when we're digging, thousands of dahlias. I'm like, this could be a lot harder if we were in clay.
Yes.
But yeah, so we, sunflowers, we direct seed those. And then we just started last year actually using frost fabric over them. So they've a lot of pressure to birds and small animals. So we would direct seed them and then we cover it. And then as soon as they pop, we just pull that fabric back off. And we've had a lot of success with that. So yeah, it's been
very interesting. Yeah, we started using the paper pot for our sunflowers. And we've been super happy. I mean, you want to put them out maybe at day 10 or day 7 because they pop right up, and then you want to get them out. So we've technically got some sitting in the greenhouse, which need to go out today, but it's too wet.
So are you doing single stem or branch?
Yeah, single stem. Yeah, and then we're doing that in a 6-inch pot, which I bet I could get to a 4-inch and be fine with that because the rows are pretty far apart. But yeah, that's going to be working. That's super easy because literally we're trying to do more and more paper pot because we're trying to run a very lean crew here and just be able to, and we're good at cultivation. We've got a brand new farm that's been a good cover crop. And so we don't have a huge weed pressure, so we can get away with a lot of direct seeded, with cultivation. So very cool. All right. So we've got I'm trying to think, is there anything else here that we wanted to, so the business side, hiring people. Let's talk about that. It sounds like you have a rock star team.
Yeah.
All right. So how do you hire those people?
Oh man, interesting is this year, I've had several of them that have been with me since the very first year. And I think it is just, I don't know if I'm just lucky, but they work hard. I think we have a really good team environment. I think that's the key for being here. We work really, really hard, but when you come here at the end of the day, even if I've been making them pressure wash cow manure out of the barn to make it look workshop ready, they're laughing and they're happy. And I think that's like, that to me is, I think, what creates like a good team environment and keeps people coming back. And for the hiring this year, we actually just hired 2 this year. It was specific positions. They're very, very, very part-time. I'm talking like 10 to 12 hours a week of running markets and things like that. Because I really wanted to give the girls who work for me full-time a break. So that was kind of intentional with that. And then I turned it over this year to one of the girls who works for me. I got all these applications that came in, and this was really difficult for me to let it go.
Yeah.
Like I trusted that, they worked for me for this many years. They kind of know what it's like to be a part of our team and what it takes. And so she did fantastic. She narrowed it down, got a few applicants for me to interview, and we made 2 great hires. So so we advertised on Facebook was where we posted our job.
And
so
did you go to your existing customer base too?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we did. And we posted it. And I had a friend message me and say, geez, you made that real appealing, because I put it out there and said like, hey, I know we have pretty pictures, but this is what it takes to get those pretty pictures. Because I think, it is intentional for me when I initially set up the farm is that, I wanted to set my page up and my social pages and my email to market to my customer, not to other farmers.
Absolutely.
So when you asked about the production fields and not seeing a ton of those photos, it's kind of because that is what it's directed to. And they want to know about the landscape side. They want to learn, like, do I need to cover my peonies up tonight when it frosts after Mother's Day? So that's sort of, so I put this post out there and said, hey, we'd love for you to work for us, but it's going to suck. So
no, I think that's great. I think that's the number one mistake that farmers make with their social media is they say, I want to show my farmer friends what I'm doing. And no. You need to show your customers what it takes to produce their food and why they should be paying the prices they are for your food. And I know some farms, like the Kitchen Garden Farm in Massachusetts, which I need to get them on the podcast. They have very intentional accounts for each of the farmers has their own account for showing farm stuff. And then the farm has an account, which is just for customers.
Oh, that's smart.
So I mean, it's a lot, 3 accounts to keep track of. That's crazy, but that's very intentional, and it's made a world of difference for them. And their business exploding, every year they increase and getting bigger and bigger. And it's because they know their marketing.
Yeah. And I keep my story open to that, so like my story we'll use for like on farm, like, hey, this is what's happening. We're soaked in the rain and we're planting dahlias today, so they get to see it. But then it's more of like a curated, intentional, and I try to not really focus on selling to them either. I really try to just make that connection with the customer. Just to me, that's that's why they're buying from us anyway, versus, me pushing and selling at them constantly. So.
Absolutely. So what's the future hold? I know you talked about your kid classes. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah. For the future, right now we're really kind of looking at next year, what we can do what less we can do, if that makes sense. When I said in the beginning about, I took money from anybody that would take my flowers.
Yes.
Now it's like, okay, so where do we want to take this and where do we want to grow and, kind of hone in that focus. Because, when I talk about the farm, I'm like, oh, we do workshops. I have a CSA. We do a U-Pick. You can buy DIY flowers from us. We do weddings. And so we're starting to chop that stuff down and take things away and really kind of get more intentional about that. And the workshop series is one of those places that we want to continue to grow. I'd like to see it take more of an online platform, where we could reach not just the community, our local community, but, have more of those educational classes. Because I love nothing more than when people leave like, oh, they think they have a brown thumb, but they leave and they're super excited about what they just did and what they created. And they love telling me that the dahlia tubers they bought from me are beautiful. Kind of build that confidence with people. So the Little Sprout series, we'll continue to kind of build that curriculum over the next year. And then our plan is to release like a summer series, almost like a little camp for kids.
Okay.
Next year is what our goal is. So I like to kind of have some thought to planning that out and get the curriculum ready before we, fire it off. We actually are going to do an adult gardening series as well.
Okay.
We'll probably work some with our local extension. We do a really great container gardening workshop in the spring that we have about 100 to 150 people attend it. They just want to get a little bit of education, get their hands in the dirt and make something pretty. And so we kind of want to build off of that excitement for people. It's a low price point class. They're only paying $20 a head, it's $20 a head for my time.
Yeah.
And it's nothing. It is only my time. It's about an hour and a half. And then they buy the plants from a local greenhouse. So we just want to kind of build on that, have more of a solid series. And then also with moms at home doing homeschooling, we've been working on lessons plans with the blog, to try to give them some ways to connect with kids. And so.
Very cool. So like in that container gardening, what kind of plants do they put in that container garden?
So they're doing annual. Some of them, they'll plant, million bells, petunias, geraniums, like those sort of things. But we also talk about the elements of container gardening. So it kind of gets some of them interested in vegetable growing, so we do like a whole, we talk about soils and, what they need to kind of keep that going and living, and then give them ideas for what else they can do in containers. So like a salsa garden, they might do an onion and a tomato and talk about the size that they need, or a lettuce garden or an herb garden. They're doing that. And a lot of them, some of them, it's the first time they've ever done it. Some of them, they could come up there and teach the class with me. They've been doing it for 8 years. And I'm thinking, why are these people still paying this course, they come every year. So, yeah.
But I think it's the community that you've created, and they just enjoy being a part of that aspect, coming out to the farm, experiencing it, and just seeing you.
Yeah. I feel pretty lucky with that. So.
Very cool. Well, I look forward to seeing how your farm grows over the couple of years. Is there anything else you'd like to share before we go?
No, I just appreciate you having me on here and the opportunity to kind of share about our farm and what we're doing down here on the Ohio River. So I appreciate it.
Yeah, because you guys aren't in a huge city.
No, we're 2 hours. If you call Charleston, West Virginia, a big city, we're an hour and a half from it. But everywhere else, we're 2 hours from Columbus, 2.5 hours from Pittsburgh, 2.5 to Cleveland. Yeah, so we're in a pretty small town. We do have a college here, but pretty ag farming community. So we've got a great following. We get we've just branched up to the Cambridge area, so right there at the 77 intersection. Yeah, so we're just selling at their market now this year too. So that's been a learning experience too. So
very cool. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming out. I appreciate your time, and again, look forward to watching you grow and all the cool flowers on your Instagram.
Awesome. Thanks, Michael. Appreciate it.
Hey, thriving farmers, have you checked us out on YouTube lately? We have a bunch of new content there, including a few rants by me. I want to tell you, you don't want to miss them. I actually go rant about, some of the problems I see in our space and some of the challenges I see farmers facing. So go check that out. We've got instructional videos over there as well. Talk about setting up our new farm here in Ohio and all the steps we're going to do that, as well as just tutorials and tips on best practices for all sorts of things on the farm. So go ahead, check over at Growing Farmers on YouTube and see the new content we put together for you. So there you have it, another episode in the books. So I'd love if you would hop on over to iTunes and leave us a rating and a review. Those mean everything to us. We love to hear what you're thinking. If you have a podcast guest that you can recommend, please pop on over to the Thriving Farmer Podcast website and leave us a review. That's thrivingfarmerpodcast.com.